Hello, and welcome back to the Mindful Insights podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you'll be able to see the slides. This is another discussion episode, and this is the episode following an article based on an ebook that I wrote called Experiential Evidence of the Divine from the Trenches of Human Existence. That ebook is available on Amazon if you want to check it out. There's two major stories in there, one of which was shared in the actual article, that were just too orchestrated to be coincidental, and that to me is definitely evidence of someone, a higher power, source energy, whatever it is, working with me to make sure that everything works out the way it's supposed to. And I understand now, after having gone through several cycles of these types of experiences, that my pattern is to resist at first, and then things just keep going wrong, and they keep getting worse, and they keep going wrong, and keep getting worse, and keep going wrong, until I stop pushing against it. And this has happened enough times for me to understand that this is a truth. It may not be your truth, but it is definitely my truth, and others might identify with it as well. So the key is to not resist in the first place, to just kind of allow whatever is to be and observe your life playing out while also working toward a general goal. You know, I hope that makes sense. You don't want to get, you want to get a little bit specific, like if you want specific things, but don't get so specific into it that you give yourself analysis paralysis. So the key thing is whatever you're trying to manifest, focus on the feeling of it. Okay, so with all that being said, let's talk about some of these quotes from this previous article. During any time of transition, contrast will appear because the universe and the reality that affects you on a daily basis are rearranging themselves to bring your desires to fruition within your life. So it's literally like a clearing out or purging of things that no longer serve your highest good. So it begins with a decision, believe it or not. It begins with a conscious decision. It begins with a decision, like for example, the stories in this particular ebook. The sequences of events were just ridiculous. They were just crazy, and the way it all worked out was so just, it was ridiculous. If you want to go check out the article, the link will be in the description, so that way you know what I'm talking about. But it literally begins with a conscious decision. So say, for example, my latest conscious decision that really threw a huge upheaval into my life was the decision to take better care of myself. I decided to start focusing on losing weight, and this was a while ago, obviously. I decided to start focusing on losing weight and becoming healthy, and slowly, one by one, kind of annihilating my addictions, various addictions that I had. And by making that decision, and by focusing on myself, and by actually going in and starting to do the things that would lead me to my goal every day, developing healthy habits, things in my life began to really fall apart, and codependent relationships began to really bubble up to the surface. There was a lot of growing of consciousness that happened through these situations. And however it turns out, however it ends up playing out, it is what is meant to be. Everything is divinely timed and divinely planned. So this is why it's important not to be too attached to one outcome. Because if you're attached to one outcome, not only does it make you feel like you have to control everything around you, but it also makes things working out differently, or it can make things working out differently feel like way more horrible than what it actually is. I had a word there for a second and then it lost me, so I'm just gonna, So when contrast happens, when things seem to just be going wrong, take a step back and think about, is there a decision that you thought about, or that you've been wanting to make, or that you've been leaning towards, or that you've even already made? Was there a decision that requires a huge change in your life, or that requires you to be courageous in some other way? Any kind of big changes are scary, and they can feel really scary at first. So this is a lot of the reason why so many of us find that we resist what's going on, what's happening around us, and we fight against it. Giving it that attention and that energy and that emotion will actually continue to make it worse. So when you are in transition, and when you can recognize that your life is falling apart to make room for better things, and of course in 3D linear time, this could take a while, but when you actually learn to recognize the cycles and patterns rather than paying attention to time itself, that kind of shifts your focus, and it helps you to understand when you are in the midst of a cycle and then be able to break it. So rest assured and stay calm, because if your life is in upheaval, then it's things clearing out to make room for your next chapter. All right, the second quote that I want to discuss today, this is a good one too. It's kind of a long one, but this is a good one. There has to be a process, a sequence of events to lead you to your desires becoming manifest. And this is a constant, continuous, fluid, ongoing process. As soon as one desire or realization is tangible to you in some way, you may begin to see things differently, and your desires then evolve as you do. This process never pauses or stops. You are always creating, constantly, all the time, for eternity. So this seems all, like logical and things like that. However, I know for me, I don't want to say I had a difficult time, but it took a few, I guess speed bumps and experiences and working through some inner turmoil and conditioning and things like that in order to fully understand within myself what this process kind of looks like. Like Abraham Hicks always says, you can't get there from there. You have to be, quote unquote, ready to be ready to be ready, which means that during every step of your journey, you're doing everything that you can to continue on and to prepare yourself for whatever it might be next. If you have a goal that you're working toward, or a project that you're working on, or something that you're doing that is your soul's purpose, I guess would be the best way to put it, then you will have a lot of growth along the way. It's not going to be all easy peasy whatever, but in order to work with the process, you have to take the inspired action. And in order to take the inspired action, you have to know where you're going, kind of, and you have to know what you are doing that is inspirational to you. So if you feel kind of disconnected, or if you feel like you're not able to create, then that's probably not the best time to create, because your resistant energy to it will be apparent in the actual thing that you're creating. People can pick up on this stuff, you know? So, when you recognize the process, so the manifestation process is interesting, and there's lots of different, aspects to it. There's lots of different steps along the way, and it'll also depend on who you talk to and what their experiences have been like. And how they recognize what goes on within themselves. So as with everything else, take what resonates and leave the rest, and continue to do your own research and discern what works for you, because I'm sure that everybody else's inner workings aren't exactly the same as mine, So, but there's always a process. There's always a process, because a lot of times, especially if you're trying to manifest something that you consider quote unquote big, you may have the idea that there's a lot of work involved, that there's a lot of tedium, that there's a lot of just things to get done in order to get there. Well, whatever you believe is what will be true for you. So if you believe that this is going to take a long time and it'll be hard and that it'll be, tedious or whatever, then that will be the experience that you have. However, if you go at it from a perspective of, oh, this will be fun and maybe I'll learn something, and maybe I'll get to try some new things, or maybe, however you can put a positive reframe on it to quote unquote trick your ego into shutting the hell up, then you can go ahead and enjoy whatever it is you're doing and feel inspired with whatever it is you're doing, even if it's an obligatory thing. And that energy will also transfer. So in my case, sometimes I get burnt out on doing the same thing over and over again. So if I'm writing all the time, then I'll get burnt out. If I'm creating videos constantly, then I'll get burnt out. If I'm editing constantly, editing books all the time, then I'll get burnt out, So I try to stagger my work, and I try to keep it as varied as possible, so that way I can tap into my inspiration whenever I am doing something and contribute positive energy and a positive ripple effect into the words or the things that I'm creating. So, and it does show. You transfer energy with whatever it is you're creating, and depending on what it is you're creating, it's going to be a representation of that energy within that moment or that period of time for you. And a lot of times, if you create something with, say, quote unquote negative energy, then that is like exercising your demons. That's like transmuting negative energy or emotion into something constructive or positive that allows you to release the energy, so that it doesn't become stuck within you or cause problems later on. So creation, whether you're doing conscious creation or unconscious creation, is happening all the time. And this is recognizable through mindfulness. So if you're able to be present in the moment and not think too much, not overthink everything, but just experience and pause and reflect and see what's going on really, then you can begin to connect your emotional state with things that you are manifesting. So recently we had a period of time of about 2-3 weeks where we were just manifesting things like crazy. And this was triggered because there was a huge relief of someone surviving a heart attack. So everyone was elated and celebratory, and thank God you're still alive. And um, this this kind of push toward gratitude and mindfulness and paying attention and appreciating life experience has helped us to recognize our powers in our situation here. So we've manifested a vehicle, concert tickets, and there were like little things in between, a ton of little things. There was a thing about an Eiffel Tower keychain that caught my attention, and they happened to have two of them, so I got one, which was really strange to me. And there were a few other things that were just like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what's happening here. I see the connection. All right, cool. And when you appreciate and enjoy life, then more and more good things come your way. So, but you have to also jump at the opportunities that present themselves to you, which is where the non-resistance and kind of surrendering to the process comes in. Things will happen in exactly the time that they are meant to happen. Nothing says that you have to be exactly where you say you're going to be in 5 years. That's just unrealistic. You can work toward a goal, but it may not be the right thing for you, and it may take a couple years or a few incidences or some things to get you to that point. And the lessons that you learn along the way will help you in whatever else you're doing. It all is connected, and it's all for you. Whatever you're experiencing in your life is especially designed just for you and your perception to be able to understand what's happening and extract the lessons that are specifically for you and your soul. So I hope that helps you to kind of understand, I guess, that you never stop. And that sounds exhausting at first, especially in the beginning when you're still tired, when you're going through the dark night of the soul, which is more than a night. For some people, it's like months, or even years. But there's, when you're going through the dark night of the soul, you're exhausted. You're tired. Your soul hurts. You're achy. You can't imagine having to fight another day. But it will pass. And while you're going through it, whatever lessons you can extract, they will serve you for a long time, and you will probably get more layers of meaning over time as you back away from whatever situation you are transitioning out of. So the second you have a desire, or make a decision for change, or make an observation like, wow, this kind of sucks, I wish my life was different, that can be enough to trigger a whole process. And when you're going through this process, it becomes a lot less stressful if you can manage to emotionally detach enough, mindfully, right? This doesn't mean suppression or not dealing with your emotions. This just means that you don't act on your emotions immediately. You sit with them, and you pause, and you take time to reflect before responding to any situation or any kind of anything. It doesn't mean you don't care. It just means that you're more observing. You're less emotionally dependent on how things work out around you, because you are emotionally balanced within yourself. And that's what mindful detachment is all about, is being able to handle everything without allowing your emotions to dictate your actions. All right, the last quote for this episode. You don't have to know how everything will play out in order to observe your journey and appreciate the ways in which things happen. So this is one of those things where looking back, reflecting on some crazy times in your life might be helpful, because sometimes we literally go through things and it's like a whirlwind of insanity, and then before you know it, everything's over and it worked out perfectly, and you're like, whoa, how? So then that's when you can go back, and sometimes you can figure out how by reverse engineering the series of events. Other times you may not be able to figure out how or see how right away, and that's okay. However, when you do look back on your life and recognize a crazy series of events that had to happen in that specific order for you to be able to get the solutions that you need, well, it's kind of miraculous, and I hate using that word miracle, because the misconception attached to the word is that it's something special, but miracles happen all around us every day. So it's not really all that special. It's just a matter of whether you see it and recognize it or not. So one of the stories involved me living in a crappy trailer park and the neighbors robbing me. And I was trying to put our stuff in storage and get the hell out of there for a year while my ex-husband was deployed, because of all the stuff leading up to it. Like there were a bunch of things that went wrong, and these things all went wrong in a very specific order, which you'll be able to see in the ebook and if you listen to the last blog article narration. But because my neighbors robbed me, and I have no idea how this wound up in the newspaper, but what are the chances of this happening to two different people in the same place at the same time? I would say that's pretty slim to none. Two people's neighbors robbing them, I don't know. So I was looking for a storage unit, and I had no money to put down as a down payment. So I was kind of driving around, because I'd gone through the phone book and called all them and didn't have any luck. So I was driving around, and I pulled into this storage unit that was not in the phone book because it was a fairly new one. So I pulled in there, and I stood in line after one person, and the lady behind the counter and this person happened to be talking about, she was saying something like, oh man, what's this world coming to when a girl's own neighbors rob her, or something like that. And I almost started laughing. Okay, I'm in there with my baby girl. She's like 5 months old or something, and I almost started cracking up because I'm smiling, and the other person left, and I go up to her and I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's like, oh, how can I help you, honey? I was like, yeah, that girl that got robbed, that was me. And in true Southern fashion, she's like, oh, bless your heart, you poor thing, what can I do for you, blah blah blah. And she ended up basically off the books reserving me a storage unit that was supposed to be empty by the end of the month, and didn't charge me anything. She was, because I told her I would have money on the 1st, which I would. So it was one of those things that really, I don't know if she would have been so inclined to help me had it not been for that weird little coincidence. And there were other things in that story that worked out just so weirdly. It's stranger than fiction. It really is. So, when you look back on some of the events in your life, are there any weird sequences or series of events that happened in a specific way that you just went, what? Because it is orchestrated. It is orchestrated between you and your inner being or higher self and source energy, and everyone else is also co-creating, which is why the vibrational factor is so important, and it is complex. It's a very complex system, I guess, to try and wrap your head around, because there's so many different aspects and layers to it. But when you understand the simplest way to influence your manifestations is to take care of your inner landscape, to take good care of your emotional well-being. Your emotions are the most important part of this life experience, and your emotions allow you to create magical, wonderful, beautiful things in your life. And they also allow you to create traumatic and karmic things. So being aware of your emotional state and how your thoughts kind of drive your emotions, this is where you begin to really take control. And I hate that word control, but you step into your power so that you can more positively influence your manifestation, and then you can positively influence your life experience. So as always, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate you guys, and I hope that this helps you in some way. As usual, take what resonates and leave the rest, and always do your own research. You have to, as individuals, it is up to us to find our own individual spiritual journeys, and no two people's paths look the same, ever. I mean, there might be some similarities, but there's no two people with the exact same path. Knowing that, you can rest assured that you're not doing anything wrong. There's nothing to worry about, and there's nothing to fear, as long as you are in integrity and you are coming from a place of love and compassion. And this is what it's all about, because this is how we raise the vibration of the planet, and this is how we raise the consciousness of the planet, and how life just becomes better and better and better. So I hope that this resonated for you, and thank you so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and don't forget to subscribe and check out the YouTube channel. Check out innerworkcoaching.life for more resources. There's tons of information on there, and I'm constantly adding more because I've been channeling a lot more. So I'm always going to be adding more information, I feel like, over the next few weeks, especially because things are just picking up. I feel like momentum is picking up again. So anyway, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video and on the next podcast episode. I have recently begun playing with the idea of doing interviews on the podcast as well as on my YouTube channel, just to help spread more perspectives and more points of view and more insights. So if you are an author or work in the spiritual field at all, or know about inner work or spiritual practices or anything like that, then go ahead and contact me. My email is innerworkcoaching.life@gmail.com. So if you are interested in potentially putting together an interview with me, go ahead and email me and we will see what we can do. All right. And I know I'm just starting. I don't have like a huge audience yet or whatever, but this is important work, and I think that it's going to have an impact now as well as later, after more work and after more, content and what have you. So it's again, it's all a process. I am in process right now, and if you have a perspective that you feel like might help people and you want to help get it out, then by all means, we can sure do an interview. I think that would be fun. I love talking to people, so this is kind of a natural progression for me anyway. That being said, have a fantastic week and enjoy the power of your manifestations. Thank you so much for watching. No matter where you are on your journey, please take good care of yourself from within on all levels. If you'd like more guidance, please subscribe to my YouTube channel,
or visit www.innerworkcoaching.life for more content or to apply for one-on-one coaching. With unconditional love and light, I wish you an amazing week, and I hope to see you again for my next video. Namaste.